start things off, we still don't know how we're gonna obtain him. We know that we can use universal sculptures on him, but we still don't know how we can obtain him after it. Maybe Wheel of Fortune, maybe Mighty as Governor, maybe another type of event. But to me, it's very familiar with how Liu Che was introduced to the game last year, and it was during the anniversary, and we had the event to unlock him. And at first, he wasn't available in any other event, but later on, he got added to the Wheel of Fortune. And I think this would be his fate, but maybe in a month from now, maybe longer, maybe shorter, we do not know that. Second of all is he's a skill damage commander, and skill damage for infantry is relatively old news because the last one was Scipio Prime, and that was well over a year ago, probably like 2 years ago now. And Scipio Prime is still very good, but the next infantry release is like 6 months time. So if you're someone who's using only infantry, I think this is a good commander to get. But if you're running like all troop types, and if you're planning to use universals on him, you might want to pump the brakes a bit. Because if you're using only one infantry march, I would still prefer to have smite commander pairing. Because smite is the new infantry mechanic, and I truly think, the next infantry that's gonna comes out is the 10th generation, which I have a feeling which is gonna be really, really good. One of them is going to be a garrison commander, and the latest garrison we have is Gorgo, and we don't really have a true pairing for her outside of Heraclius and artifact KVKs, and I think she really needs that partner to truly shine. So it can't be a skill damage commander. It has to be a smite damage commander. Now, what they could do is release the open field commander. They could release one for a skill damage, for example. But the chances of that are not really big because I haven't seen that yet. But then again, it might happen. But are you really going to bet on that to happen in 6 months' time? Maybe even longer. I don't know. Not really credible to me. So we do know he offers a lot of damage. Like that is undeniable. He also has march speed, which is really good for open field. Has normal damage reduction, which is really good for anti-smite. A lot of stats, 40% defense, pretty good. And he also has this drain effect, which turned out to be really good in team fights. So his only downside is doesn't really have a debuff. Except maybe you can probably do it. You can think that the third skill is a debuff, but not in a way that is too impactful, like Guan's silence or Scipio's health reduction across multiple targets. So he's obviously made to be paired with Scipio because Scipio does the debuff. He provides me more stats, more march speed, and more damage, more additional damage, which is why I do think having the latent power talent in this setup is quite nice. I think this build right here, if you're pairing with Scipio, I think this is the way. You want Feral Nature to proc back to skills as fast as possible. You want even more Rage to make sure that happens as fast as possible. They want to make sure you get Hold the Line and Stronger Body because this is really good for sustain. And 2 points in Iron Spear because you're not just gonna fight cavalry on the field, you're gonna fight other troop types as well. So shaving off 1 point for that, for the favor of more rage, which is universal, I think makes more sense. But you can play around with it if you'd like. Any other pairings I don't think are as viable. I didn't see any Sargon reports, and I do not have the time to test it right now, but I doubt it will be really as good as Scipio because Sargon is just a disappointment for the open field, sadly. So who should invest in Ragnar Prime? I think if you have lots of sculptures and you're an infantry main, I think this is the most use you're going to be able to have compared to other players because you're probably going to have everything set up already. You probably have 2 marches or even 3 marches that you can run right now. So having Ragnar Prime to add even more, to add some more burst damage is going to be really good for you. For anyone else, like someone who's not really banking on sculptures like myself, for example, I do not have a lot of universals. And I do have 2 infantry marches, which are Wallace with Liu. Then I have Guan with Scipio. Now, my Guan Scipio, I do think would perform worse compared to Ragnar and Scipio, but is that really worth a truly big amount of universals when the 10th generation of commanders are on the way? I don't know. I I do not think that way because I have I think it'd make more sense if the 10th generation, 10 is a big number. I think these commanders are going to be meta changing because the current 9th generation commanders, they have all been kind of good but not broken, you know? They weren't as good as last year. For example, like Liu Che was a meta defining commander that launched in the game. And yeah, Wallace was good, but he did not have the same impact Liu Che had. So I think we're in due to have the next generation have even bigger impact than before. So it leads me to think it's better to save up for the next generation, starting from Cavalry, which I think we can agree could get some love right now because compared to other troop types, they have fallen out a bit, but I think deservedly so. They have been on top for so long. I think they needed that to bounce back stronger. So I think if you're a Cav main, I think every day brings you closer to the release, and you should be ready for that. And that's what I'm going to do myself. Currently, I am in the off season. I have no need to spend any type of sculpture amount into a commander. Now is the time to collect. It's time to hoard resources, materials, equipment, gold heads, and as you can see, I am quite a long way from having a potential to max a commander. So I'll be doing just that. I just don't want you to make the mistake that if you don't have too many sculptures to spare, like let's say you have enough to max 2 commanders right now, or 1.5. You go ahead and work on Ragnar, you max him, then you won't have enough for the 10th generation commanders, which are going to be for Cavalry, which I'm guessing is going to be around mid to late February to early March. And I think you do want to prepare for that because after Cavalry, it's infantry, and it's probably going to be smite because one of them is going to be garrison, and releasing a skill damage garrison after Gorgo really doesn't make any sense unless they want to bring Zenobia even more back into the meta or someone like Flavius, which it would mess up a lot of accounts in terms of the armaments required and the way people have set up their infantry garrisons right now. So I think that would be a big step back to release a skill damage cycle. But what they could do, and I don't think this is out of the question, is that they release a garrison smite commander, but they also have a skill damage infantry for open field. This will be the first time that has ever happened, and it might happen, but we don't know that just yet. I just don't want you to get tricked by the massive damage factor, which is indeed quite nice. Like his whole kit is nice, but you already have 2 marches. He might be a Guan replacement, but he doesn't really have any meta changing debuffs. He is a DPS dealer, and you want to pair him with a debuff commander like Scipio to provide even more damage to that march. But Guan still has the 3 target silence, which is still a big factor in group fights, even though the reports might not be as good as they were before. But that is simply his way to stay relevant after all these years. I think I have him for like 4 years, 5 years, nearly. And it's just crazy longevity and probably one of the longest commanders to stay relevant alongside Attila since the release of the game, which is kind of crazy. So, what do you guys think? Are you going to invest in him? Are you going to wait for the next generation? Let me know down in the comments below. And with all that said, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.